You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
And that was Gale Force with The Weather. Thanks, Gale. Congratulations on your engagement to Danny Wins. If you're just tuning in, folks, this is Rusted Robot Radio, edition 291 for Sunday, May the 10th, 2020. Happy Mother's Day, one and all.
You're listening to WBOT, Rusted Robot Radio.
We've got a special treat for you tonight, folks. It's pop culture overload here on Rusted Robot Radio. We've got all your latest pop culture news, including upcoming movies and casting developments. All the information, all the time, here on the 24-hour Rusted Robot Radio Network. My regular co-host is out sick with the COVID-19 flu, but that's okay. As always, I am your host, Harold Chestman, here to entertain you 24/7. So like we just mentioned, that was Gale Force with The Weather. Everything's looking sunny and bright. It's a very exciting afternoon. So sit right back, turn up your radios, and we'll continue on with your pop culture broadcast. We're going to start with a couple of pop culture deaths. We've got Roy Horn of Siegfried and Roy, who died at the age of 75. So Roy Horn of Siegfried and Roy, the duo whose extraordinary magic tricks astonished millions until Horn was critically injured in 2003 by one of the act's famed white tigers, has died, and he was 75 years old. He died of complications from the coronavirus on Friday in a Las Vegas hospital, according to a statement released by publicist Dave Kervin. We have a quote here from Siegfried. He says, "Today the world has lost one of the greats of magic, but I have lost my best friend." Siegfried Fischbacher said in a statement, "From the moment we met, I knew Roy and I would, together, change the world. There could be no Siegfried without Roy, and no Roy without Siegfried." Roy was injured in October 2003 when a tiger named Montecore attacked him on stage at the Mirage Hotel Casino in Las Vegas. He had severe neck injuries, lost a lot of blood, and later suffered a stroke. He underwent lengthy rehabilitation, but the attack ended the long-running Las Vegas Strip production. The darker-haired of the flashy duo, Horn was credited with the idea of introducing an exotic animal, his pet cheetah, to the magic act. So that's some very sad news from the world of celebrity culture. And furthering that, we have one more death that also happened on Friday. Richard Wayne Penniman, better known as Little Richard, was an American singer, songwriter, and musician. His most famous celebrated work dates back to the mid-1950s when his charismatic showmanship and dynamic music, characterized by frenetic piano playing, pounding backbeat, and raspy shouted vocals, laid the foundation for rock and roll, leading him to be given the nickname the innovator, the originator, and the architect of rock and roll. Penniman's innovative, emotive vocalizations and up-tempo rhythmic music also played a key role in the formation of other popular music genres, including soul and funk. He influenced numerous singers and musicians across musical genres from rock to hip-hop, and his music helped shape rhythm and blues for generations to come. And of course, we all know his famous song, Tutti Frutti, as well as Long Tall Sally. So that's two pop culture deaths this week. One from coronavirus and the other from bone cancer. Two celebrities that will be greatly missed in the world of pop culture and entertainment. Moving on from celebrity deaths, we now bring you Cancelled or Renewed, the fate of every TV show in 2020 so far. Looking through the list here from TMZ.com, we have NCIS set to return for season 17 at CBS. However, Matt LeBlanc's Man with a Plan, also from CBS, was cancelled. FBI of CBS has been renewed for season 3. Tommy was cancelled by CBS. Patricia Heaton's Carol's Second Act was also cancelled by CBS. Looks like CBS doesn't want a lot of shows on the air right now. CBS also cancelled the mid-season sitcom Broke. However, Undercover Boss has been renewed by CBS. Also, The Unicorn was renewed for another season by CBS. And The Neighborhood will also return to CBS for another season. Bob Hart's Abishola will also return for a second season over at CBS. And SWAT was renewed for a 4th season, also by CBS. As was SEAL Team, renewed for another season at CBS. And once again, more CBS news. NCIS New Orleans is set to return for another season as well. And of course, NCIS Los Angeles gets another season at CBS. You guessed it. Oh, Magnum PI was also picked up for another season at CBS. And MacGyver was also renewed by CBS. FBI Most Wanted was also renewed for Season 2 at CBS. And it also renewed Bull for Season 5. Blue Bloods was also renewed by CBS. And it also renewed All Rise for a 2nd season. HBO has renewed comedy series Insecure for a 5th season. And they also renewed Westworld for Season 4. Looks like CBS cancelled God Friended Me after 2 seasons. And Fox announced that 911 Lone Star will return for a 2nd season, and parent series 911 was also renewed for a 4th season. Hulu renewed Shrill for a 3rd season, and of course Netflix cancelled V-Wars after its 1st season, which was actually a pretty excellent series. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. October Faction was also cancelled after just 1 season at Netflix, but Lock and Key was renewed for Season 2. Netflix picked up Love is Blind for Season 2 and 3, with 2 currently casting in Chicago and airing in 2021. Hosts Vanessa and Nick Lachey are set to return as well. Netflix renewed The Circle for Seasons 2 and 3, and Netflix also picked up Rhythm and Flow for a 2nd season. We're getting a new series from Marie Kondo titled Sparkling Joy with Marie Kondo, so that sounds exciting. Though the Philadelphia Set 5th season hasn't aired yet, Netflix already renewed Queer Eye for Season 6, and the 6th season will film them doing makeovers in Austin, Texas. Station 19 was renewed for Season 4 at ABC. Netflix has confirmed the 3rd season of Lost in Space will air in 2021, but it will be the show's last. Netflix cancelled RuPaul's AJ and the Queen after just 1 season, and The Magicians will end on Sci-Fi after its 5th season, which is currently airing. Almost Family was cancelled at Fox after just 1 season. Judge Judy will end her long-running show after its 25th season, but is already working on a follow-up project called Judy Justice. The following couple of years, you should be & able to catch all the reruns that CBS has. And CBS also announced that Hawaii Five-0 will end after its current and 10th season. Law & Order SVU has been renewed for 3 more seasons. And Chicago Fire will return for 3 more seasons on NBC. And Chicago Med has also been renewed for 3 more seasons on NBC. And guess what? Chicago PD was renewed for 3 more seasons as well. Netflix renewed Atypical for a 4th and final season. The last 10 episodes will air in 2021. The Blacklist was renewed for Season 8 on NBC. Are You Afraid of the Dark was renewed for a 2nd season on Nickelodeon. And 10 more episodes of All That Reboot were ordered as the 1st season continues. Paw Patrol was renewed for an 8th season at Nickelodeon. Blue's Clues and You will return for a 3rd season at Nickelodeon. And Top Elf will return to Nickelodeon for a 2nd season as well. Blaze and the Monster Machines was renewed for Season 6. And Insatiable was cancelled after 2 seasons at Netflix. But Sex Education has been renewed for a 3rd season at Netflix. And The Good Doctor was renewed for Season 4 at ABC. And Tyler Perry's If Loving You Is Wrong was cancelled after 5 seasons at OWN. I believe that's the Oprah Winfrey Network. Ray Donovan, starring Liev Schreiber, was cancelled by Showtime after 7 seasons. Spinning Out was cancelled by Netflix after just 1 season. Jenna Dewan's Soundtrack was cancelled by Netflix after 1 season. And Netflix also announced that Imelda Staunton will replace Olivia Colman as Queen Elizabeth II for Season 5 of The Crown. And Season 5 will be the final season for this royal drama. Good Trouble has been picked up for a 3rd season at Freeform, whatever that is. And AMC announced Better Call Saul will end after Season 6. In other AMC news, they have announced that its Walking Dead spin-off, World Beyond, will only run for 2 seasons. And Sorry for Your Loss was cancelled after 2 seasons on Facebook Watch. Have you heard of Facebook Watch? Probably not. No one else has either. While not officially cancelled, Netflix's Mindhunter has been put on indefinite hold at the streaming service, and the show's 3 stars have been released from their contracts. Netflix renewed You for a 10-season Season 3, which will air sometime in 2021. And Star Trek Picard was already renewed for a 2nd season at CBS All Access a week ahead of the Season 1 launch, of course. We all knew that. And Shameless was renewed for an 11th and final season over at Showtime.
Hey, podcast fans, Spotify is making it easy for you to stream this podcast and many others like it on your mobile device, desktop app, and smart speaker. Open the app on your mobile device or desktop, click on the browser channel, then click on the podcast section. You'll be able to stay thoroughly entertained during your commute to work, your drive home, and your downtime, thanks to Spotify.
NBC has renewed New Amsterdam for 3 more seasons. And more American Horror Story will live on at FX. While it was already picked up for a 10th season, the network just renewed it for 3 more, bringing it to 13 seasons total. And Supergirl was renewed for a 6th season over at the CW. Roswell, New Mexico was renewed for season 3 at the CW. And Riverdale will return for a 5th season as well. CW's Legacies was renewed for a 3rd season. And In the Dark was renewed for a 3rd season as well. And The Flash will return to the CW for a 7th season. Way to go, Barry Allen. Dynasty was renewed for a 4th season over at the CW. And DC's Legends of Tomorrow will return as well for a 6th season. The CW renewed Charmed for a 3rd season. And Black Lightning will return for a 4th season. All American will return to the CW for a 3rd season. And Nancy Drew gets a 2nd season as well. Batwoman will get a 2nd season. And Killing Eve was renewed for a 4th season on BBC America. Raising Dion has been renewed for season 2 at Netflix. That's something I should get on to watching. I have it on my list, but have not seen it yet. And that is all the TV shows that have been renewed or cancelled so far in 2020. Now would be a great time for a word from our sponsor.
I'm Drew Leiter.
And I'm Cletus Jacobs.
And we're here on the station surviving the coronavirus. Since you guys are probably quarantined there down on Earth, we'll let you know we got DC news, comics, television shows we're going to be talking about every week. Come join us every week on the Earth Station DCU podcast here on the ESO Network.
Thanks, Earth Station DCU podcast. Keep those episodes coming. And now, of course, we have your favorite part of the program where we talk about some casting news. Have you all been watching The Mandalorian over at Disney+? Well, we've got some exciting news in regards to the Star Wars universe. Star Wars Attack of the Clones Jango Fett actor Temuera Morrison will play Boba Fett in Season 2 of Disney Plus's The Mandalorian. He played Jango Fett in Star Wars Attack of the Clones, and according to THR, Morrison's Boba Fett will play a small role in the 2nd season. The outlet also confirms the long-standing fan theory that the character was indeed teased at the end of Season 1 episode The Gunslinger. That episode ended with a shadowy figure approaching the lifeless body of Ming-Na Wen's Fennec Shand, and notably, Shand will also be returning for Season 2. Morrison played Boba Fett's father, Jango Fett, in the aforementioned Attack of the Clones. In actuality, though, Jango was used as the genetic template for the Republic's clone army, and Boba was merely a clone not imbued with the soldiers' accelerated aging, whom Jango raised as a son until he was killed by Mace Windu at the Battle of Geonosis. As for Boba, he seemingly died in Return of the Jedi when he was knocked into the Sarlacc pit by a blinded Han Solo. However, in the non-canon expanded universe, he escaped his would-be grave and resumed his rivalry with Han. At the time of this writing, it's unclear if the version of Boba Fett that appears in Mandalorian will take any cues from his expanded universe counterpart. Created by Jon Favreau, The Mandalorian stars Pedro Pascal, Gina Carano, Carl Weathers, and Giancarlo Esposito. Season 1 is available now on Disney+, and Season 2 should premiere in October. That, of course, if all goes well with the whole coronavirus worldwide pandemic, as you all know.
You're listening to the Rusted Robot Radio WBOT.
What do you guys think of Sylvester Stallone? Demolition Man is a movie that has proven to not just be entertaining, but also timeless and surprisingly relevant. While it didn't mean much back then, fans who have been online for a short amount of time can easily see the divide between the movie's super-sensitive society and the underground people who act like 4chan commentators. It's a movie that's better now than it was back then, which is why fans will be happy to know that Demolition Man 2 is in the works. Sylvester Stallone himself revealed that Demolition Man sequel was in the works during a video Q&A. The fact that Stallone just casually mentioned that there's a sequel in the works during a Q&A of all things is amusing, though it could have been planned like that. Marketing can be really weird in the era that we are living in. If you were hoping for any concrete details on Demolition Man 2, or if the movie would finally tackle how the seashells are supposed to be used, you're out of luck. Maybe the film itself will answer these questions, but we're going to have to wait and see. Until then, just go to Reddit and see how crazy people are over these bathroom seashells. No release date for Demolition Man 2 has been released, and if you're curious about the first film, it should be available on DVD, Blu-ray, and various digital stores. On a personal note, yes, I have seen Demolition Man, but probably not in over 20 years. Do I remember anything about the film? I do not. The only thing I remember is that it took place sometime in the future after people were unfrozen and woken up for the new era of space and time. Do I have anything to say about the film? No. I haven't seen it in forever, like I said. Do I remember liking it? I don't remember liking it. I remember it being cheesy. I may have to give it a revisit if we're going to have a Demolition Man 2. And speaking of movies that you may or may not care about, National Treasure has some new information. Not only were fans thrilled when Disney Plus announced its recent debut on their streaming service, but they were also over the moon when news of a third installment of the trilogy was announced. Clearly, Disney is shoring up their content and adding another movie to an existing franchise with dedicated fans as a surefire way of doing that. Which is also why they're making a National Treasure TV series. The new movie will feature the Gonzo star Nicolas Cage, who everybody knows and loves. He's very fancy and fun and outrageous. The TV series, however, will not feature Nicolas Cage. In an interview with Collider, producer Jerry Bruckheimer spilled some info on the studio's plans for the franchise. We're certainly working on one National Treasure for streaming, and we're working on one for the big screen. Hopefully they'll both come together and we'll bring you another National Treasure. But they're both very active. The one for Disney Plus is a much younger cast. It's the same concept with a young cast. The one for theatrical would, of course, be the same cast as the movies. It's unclear if that younger cast will be playing younger versions of the movie characters or if they'll merely be involved in the same sort of adventures, the latter of which might leave the door open for cameos from Nick Cage and company, but either way, the National Treasure universe is expanding and both projects are coming along quickly. The film version is being written right now. The television version is in progress. We have a pilot script done and an outline of the future episodes, Bruckheimer added. You can sign up for Disney Plus for $6.99 a month or $69.99 a year. And now we turn to the world of Star Trek and space news. We all love the future. We all love the Star Trek franchise. We're eagerly awaiting Season 3 of Star Trek Discovery.
Black alert. Black alert.
No word yet on when that is going to be coming out. Hopefully soon. We're all clamoring for it. News that is space-related, but not Star Trek specific, is the news on Netflix of the Space Force program. Here we have a trailer, the official teaser trailer for Space Force.
I want to welcome our newest four-star general, Mark Naird, formerly number 2 at the Air Force.
Thank you. It has always been my dream to command a service branch.
Our nation's internet runs through our vulnerable space satellites. POTUS wants complete space dominance. To that end, the president is creating a new branch, Space Force, which Mark will run.
What? This is a great adventure we are embarking on today. There will be setbacks, but greatness was never won without sacrifice.
Oh, he is blowing it just like you thought. Yeah, it is a complete shit show. Oh, my dry cleaner. Yeah, they lost my dress wipes.
Space should be a zone of wonder, not of conflict and death.
As a scientist, you have a loyalty to reason. Makes you a little untrustworthy.
How much was that prototype? $4 million? Middle schools. Cost as much as 4 new middle schools.
Fuck!
Are you running?
No, keep up.
Your attitude seems to be, give us money and don't look while we militarize space.
You are running.
Keep up. Hey, Bob, what are you doing?
Got suspended. Gave a teacher the finger.
His blood pressure is spiking.
Brad, no interruptions for 5 minutes. Aruba, Jamaica. Take you, Bermuda, Bahama, pretty mama. Bodies in the sand, tropical drinks melting in your hand. We'll be falling in love to the rhythm of a steel drum band. Down goes Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take you to Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty mama, Key Largo, Montego, baby, I take you.
50 years ago, our country put a man on the moon. But guess what, kids? We're going back.
And what's not to love about Steve Carell, John Malkovich, Jane Lynch, and the rest? Looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to have some serious elements with some silliness involved as well. According to Wikipedia, Space Force is a workplace comedy series that centers on a group of people tasked with establishing the 6th branch of the United States Armed Forces, the United States Space Force. It's set to premiere on Netflix on May 29th of this year, so that's just a few weeks away. According to the casting news, Steve Carell is General Mark R. Naird. John Malkovich will be Dr. Adrian Mallory. Ben Schwartz is Tony Scarabaducci. Diana Silvers is Erin Nard. Tawny Newsome is Angela Ali. We also have some recurring characters: Jimmy O. Yang, Alex Sparrow, Dawn Lake, Noah Emmerich, Fred Willard, Jessica St. Clair, Lisa Kudrow, Roy Wood Jr., Jane Lynch, and Chris Gethard. And it looks like we are going to have 10 episodes, and they all come out May 29th, as is a Netflix standard.
So I wanted to remind you once again that you can listen to this show and other podcasts on Spotify. And now it's easier than ever. Just open the app on your mobile device or desktop, click on Browse, and then click on the podcast section. It works on your computer, your phone, your smart speaker system, whatever you want to use. So stay connected to your favorite podcasts and never miss an episode using Spotify.
And now we come to the final news story of the program for this half hour. The tardigrade, also known as the moss piglet or water bear, is a bizarre microscopic creature that looks like something out of a Disney nightmare scene. Strange but not particularly threatening. The pudgy, 8-legged waterborne creature appears to be perpetually puckering. It's the farthest thing from what you'd expect an unstoppable organism to look like. Yet, water bears can withstand even the vacuum of space, as one experiment showed. A sort of microscopic Rasputin, tardigrades have been frozen, boiled, exposed to extreme doses of radiation, and remarkably they still survive. How they do this has been a mystery to science until now. Being a waterborne creature, scientists in this experiment examined how it survived desiccation or being completely dried out. When it senses an oncoming dry period, the critter brings its head and limbs into its exoskeleton, making itself into a tiny ball. It'll stay that way, unmoving, until it's reintroduced to water. It's this amazing ability that piqued Thomas Boothby's interest. He's a researcher at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Boothby told the New York Times, "They can remain like that in a dry state for years, even decades, and when you put them back in water, they revive within hours. After that, they're running around again, they're eating, they're reproducing like nothing happened." Originally, it was thought that the water bear employed a sugar called trehalose to shield its cells from damage. Brine shrimp, or sea monkeys, and nematode worms use the sugar to protect against desiccation through a process called anhydrobosis. Those organisms produce enough of the sugar to make it 20% of their body weight. Now, not the water bear. Trehalose only takes up about 2% of its entire system when it's in stasis. Though employing a sugar to preserve one's body sounds strange, the newly discovered process that the water bear goes through is even more bizarre. It turns itself into glass. In this study, tardigrades were placed into a drying out chamber which mimic conditions that organisms would encounter in a disappearing pond. As the water bears underwent anhydrobiosis, scientists examined what genes were activated. These genes produced a certain protein which they named tardigrade-specific intrinsically disordered proteins, or TDPs. When the genes which produce TDPs were blocked, the water bears died. If you take those genes and put them into organisms like bacteria and yeast, which normally do not have these proteins, they actually become much more desiccation tolerant, Boothby said. It's when the drying out process begins that such genes are activated, flooding the water bear system with the protective protein. The process occurs in much the same way as trehalose preserves sea monkeys, according to Boothby. This is an example of convergent evolution, when two unrelated organisms develop the same trait for survival. Usually, proteins are formed in orderly 3D chains of amino acids, but TDPs operate differently in a kind of random, somewhat disorganized manner, Dr. Boothby said. It's really interesting question about how a protein without a defined three-dimensional structure can actually carry out its function in a cell. Another question, is this protein used by any other organisms? When desiccation begins and TDP is activated, it engages a process known as vitrification. The glass is coating the molecules inside of the tardigrade cells, keeping them intact. From there, it goes into a form of stasis until it detects water. When that occurs, the protein is dissolved into the liquid and the tardigrade is revived. There could be some practical uses to this discovery. For instance, in medicine, vaccines often require refrigeration. But in the developing world, it isn't always available, which makes delivering vaccines to vulnerable rural communities difficult. Dr. Boothby believes that we may be able to use TDP to sort of freeze-dry vaccines or medications for easy storage and transport. What about putting humans in stasis for space travel or when they have terminal diseases to await a cure? No word on that yet. Scientists have years of research ahead of them already just to understand the inner workings of TDP. And if that isn't a good news story, I don't know what is. At this time, we'd like to thank you for tuning in to Rusted Robot Radio. Remember, if you'd like to support the show or any shows on the network, your donations are greatly appreciated and can be sent to the National Science Foundation. Until the next time we're talking to you, take care, and remember, meteorites don't fall on the Earth, they fall on the Sun, and the Earth gets in the way. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rusted Robot Podcast. Your support is greatly appreciated, and we hope you'll tune in again next time. Remember that you can visit therustedrobot.podbean.com for all of our social media links, and don't forget to share the show with everyone you know. The Rusted Robot Podcast is your best source for geek-style pop culture news.
I could do this all day.
They birth you, they raise you, they love you, and they may just eviscerate your internal organs and split you in half. Moms, right? Today we'll be talking about some of the best moms in genre to celebrate Mother's Day. Don't worry, you don't have to send your mom a gift or card this year. You can just send her a link to this video. Our first genre mother takes us to 1986 and the release of James Cameron's Aliens. The first sequel to Ridley Scott's Alien is more about moms than you might think. Aliens finds Ellen Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver, waking up 57 years after the first Alien. Everyone she knew and loved is dead, including her daughter. Well, Jonesy the cat is still alive. Anyway, Ripley ends up heading to LV-426, the planet where the alien originated from in the first movie. By the end of the film, she faces off with the alien queen, who was really ticked off because Ripley blew up all her eggs. It all leads to a final showdown which features this iconic line.
Get away from her, you bitch!
By the end, Ripley solidifies her role as Newt's surrogate mother by defeating the alien's mommy. Like we said, Aliens is not a monster movie, it's a mother movie. On a side note, did anyone else spend at least 10 years thinking when Newt says this?
I need a comb.
She's saying, I need a comb? Listen to it again.
I need a comb.
I thought that's what she was saying until I was 16 because no lie, she needs a comb. Would have made sense. Our next mother comes from the role-playing video game Undertale. The bulk of the game takes place in an underground cavern populated with monsters that once lived in harmony with mankind. Sounds a bit like the premise of a Guillermo del Toro movie, right? I think so. Anyway, players take on the persona of a small child that falls into the cavern and must fight monsters or make allies with them in order to survive. Watching over the main character is Toriel, a motherly and goat-looking monster who seeks to protect the player from the cavern's many dangers. While Toriel was created as a way to poke fun at the way some games literally hold the hands of players with endless tutorials, she provides real-world lessons, like showing mercy to adversaries. She also gives you a phone with which to contact her, and if that ain't the most mom thing to do, we don't know what is. Apropos of nothing, here's Carol Channing turning into a goat.
Better. Much better.
Next Next up is that red-haired matriarch Molly Weasley of the Harry Potter films. Since we first met Molly in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, she's been nothing but a sort of replacement mother for Harry, inviting him over for holidays and knitting him special Christmas sweaters. Even with the arduous task of raising 7 children, she makes it her duty to make sure Harry is being cared for and fed well. Who could forget the time in Goblet of Fire when she pulled Harry into that close embrace over the guilt that he maybe caused Cedric Diggory's death and it was just too much for him? And she even became his mother-in-law after Harry married Ginny. Formidable and full of love in equal measure, Molly is the wizarding mother we all deserve.
Not my daughter, you bitch!
Now let's talk about serial killers, right? While Jason Voorhees is now associated with the Friday the 13th franchise, he doesn't show up in the movie that started it all until the very end. The real antagonist of the first film? His mother. Played by Betsy Palmer, Pamela Voorhees was working as a cook at Camp Crystal Lake when her son Jason drowned, while the counselors, preferring to party and have teenage premarital intercourse, were supposed to be watching him. God. Jason's body was never recovered, and Pamela lost her sanity, swearing vengeance against the counselors of Camp Crystal Lake after the loss of her boy, whom she was extremely overprotective of. Pamela embarked on a murder spree, not only killing the 2 counselors who were supposed to be watching Jason, but a whole group of teenagers decades later. In the end, Pamela was decapitated, and a not really dead Jason carried her head around and stuck it in the fridge until part 2, which is a true and pure manifestation of a son's love.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her. Don't let her live. I won't, Jason. I won't.
On to The Land Before Time. Directed by legendary animator Don Bluth, this movie was released in 1988 and produced by Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. Spielberg, in particular, wanted to do a take on Bambi, but with dinosaurs. And you know what that means. Okay, I'm fine. Anyway, The Land Before Time opens with the birth of Littlefoot, a brontosaurus, or longneck, who is watched over by his loving mother and grandparents.
Call him Littlefoot.
One day, Littlefoot and his friends are attacked by a Tyrannosaurus Rex, or Sharptooth. His mother comes to the rescue and saves the day, but at the cost of her life. After the encounter, Littlefoot finds his dying mother in the pouring rain as she tells him to follow his heart and that she'll always be with him, even if he can't see her. Dinosaur ghost.
It whispers. So listen closely. Mother? Mother?
And finally, we come to Terminator's Sarah Connor. Her motherly attributes didn't really manifest themselves until Terminator 2 Judgment Day because John hadn't been born yet in the previous film. Her childbearing skills were questionable at best as she tried to prepare her son to become the leader of the human resistance against the machines in the future. Sarah, played by Linda Hamilton, was arrested and committed to an insane asylum after trying to bomb a computer factory, and her story of making a baby with a man from the future probably didn't help her case.
And here we are. Morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Dr. Silberman. How's the knee?
Her imprisonment left John in the care of foster parents, which resulted in angry and rebellious behavior and floppy hair because all teenage rebels in the late 80s and early 90s that had secret pain also had floppy hair. John eventually realized his mom had his best interests at heart and truly loved him, and they teamed up to save the future. So whether your mom is an egg-laying alien queen, an overly protective witch, a counselor murdering psychopath, or a protective goat monster, give her a call this Mother's Day, won't you?
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping through Amazon.com or the TeePublic Store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.